Welcome to Weather and Climate Chat with Monsoon Mike and Dr. Michael Davis. Dr. Davis, welcome back.
Good to be back.
All right, we're into, what is this, week 2 of our new semester? Things going pretty good?
Yeah, I was away in St. Louis for the Labor Day weekend, and we got caught in a tornado warning.
You were sending me pictures as you were riding down the road in the ominous dark clouds and the tornado sirens going off. I'm sure that was an interesting experience for you.
I'm from Ohio, so we deal with tornado sirens.
You deal with that kind of stuff all the time.
It took me back, but overall, really wasn't that bad.
Okay.
Wife was a different story.
A little panicky, yeah.
And Noah just slept the entire time in the car.
Yeah. So she's from Canada, so she probably has not experienced the full, tornado siren, stuff that, the hardcore Midwesterners of the U.S. have. So,
yeah.
Okay. Well, glad you're back safely. Welcome back. And here we are, week 2 of the new semester, recording this on September 5th, Thursday, for reference. And the big topic of the past couple of weeks, honestly, and actually, we might do our normal segment a little bit in reverse here. Usually we talk about our own weather and then a topic, but since our own weather kind of hinges a little bit on the topic of the week or so, we'll just go to the topic of sorts, has been good old Hurricane Dorian, who, unfortunately, the stuff I'm seeing out of the Bahamas really is heartbreaking. I mean, there's like some, one island I saw, pretty much they said is like 90 to 100% gone, as in like gone.
Yeah, like Abaco, Grand Bahamas, they took a direct hit from the Category 5 storm that pretty much stalled on them.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that we have to mention, and that's something that we're seeing a lot of recently, and I don't know if it's a pattern of sorts, but these storms don't seem to I remember in the old days, the hurricanes would kind of fly in and out like a buzzsaw. Now they just kind of like sort of what Harvey did over Texas a few years ago, just sit.
And Florence the year before.
And Florence, they say just sit. And unfortunately, the area that was was under Dorian's influence for literally days. I think at one point Dorian was moving 1 mile per hour, if that.
Yes, you could outwalk the hurricane.
You could outwalk the hurricane, and that eye was just like sitting over that one spot for the longest time. And I mean, what causes the storm not to want to move? A lack of steering currents, Dr. Davis?
Yeah, it pretty much lost its steering mechanism.
Right.
If you saw the 250, 300 millibar jet stream chart, the jet was way north. And the subtropical high also weakened a bit, so then the steering mechanism kind of slowed down in that regard.
Okay.
There's also research that I want to get at stating that you have a decrease in the forward momentum of these hurricanes. And in fact, it was about 17% down in the forward momentum from these storms compared to the 20th century almost. So because of the loss of Arctic sea ice, you have not the strong temperature differential, which then results in calmer winds and not as many undulations in the jet stream, so systems can't get cut off from the flow. And when they do, they just stall out, like what we saw with Harvey, what we saw with Florence, and the case for Dorian as well. And
as horrible as what happened in the Bahamas, Florida really dodged a major bullet. I mean, because if you remember, the prior forecasts, maybe just a couple days prior, was that stall might happen over Florida, if you remember the original forecasts. Yes. But that pushed like 150 miles to the east. Had that happened over Florida, obviously it would have been a weaker storm because it would have sat over land, but flooding probably in Florida would have been, historically magnificent.
And Florida is not very high in terms of elevation.
Right.
So when you get things like the 20-foot storm surge that parts of Bahamas saw, that would be very catastrophic for Miami, the eastern coast of the Florida Peninsula.
Right. Yeah, so Florida really dodged a big one right there. I mean, there was some damage, obviously, on the coast, high waves, surf, etc., but beach erosion, but nothing too horrible like what happened in the Bahamas.
Late last week, it was looking pretty ominous for Florida.
It was very ominous. And if you think about it, what was it, 100 miles off coast? I mean, that's not far at all.
No.
I mean, yeah, and then people, say, oh, the forecasters, they never get things right. It's always wrong. But when you're talking about, a 100-mile waffle there, I mean, it's still pretty amazing what our forecasting.
And one of the models had it going over the Florida Peninsula into the Gulf, and then turning around and coming back on the western side of the peninsula.
That would have been horrible. But fortunately, none of that happened. But unfortunately, Bahamas took pretty much the wrath of everything. That's not to say the U.S. is...
There was also, if I may add...
Go for it.
The first Category 5 to affect the Bahamas.
That's a good point. Good point.
And it came within 5 miles per hour of tying Hurricane Allen in 1980 for the strongest sustained winds of any Atlantic not earthquake, hurricane.
I remember reading about Allen. Allen's one of the more forgotten hurricanes. I think it hit very far southern Texas, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Am I correct?
It was around the Gulf, yeah.
Yeah, very far southern Texas.
But it did tie Hurricane Wilma from the very active 2005 season.
Right.
Hurricane Gilbert, 1988. And the 1935 Labor Day hurricane that hit the Florida Keys.
Right. And some of those pictures, I'm sure you saw them online too, Dr. Davis, of that it's one of those, those good and bad things for a weather nut like us, because, you hate to see the devastation, but the picture of that eye, that was just like the textbook
well-defined, pretty much donut shape that you see there. And if you got to see the hurricane hunters go into the eye in the photo from there, they had what's known as a stadium effect,
right,
where you have the very intense low pressure at the surface of the hurricane, but as you go higher up, all that air is essentially collecting, so you have higher pressure aloft.
Right.
So the air is pushing down, and you create this bowl, like amphitheater.
Right.
Pretty much like a football stadium sort of thing. And that shows just the strength of the hurricane as a result.
Right. Now, we're not the United States is not off the hook yet. Obviously, fortunately, Dorian is nowhere near the strength of it a couple of days ago when it was a Category 5. Now we're at a high-end Category 2. But Category 2 can still cause a lot of problems.
And you and I were just talking off air that it's only 1 mile an hour short of Category 3.
And I believe I saw last night, I could be wrong, but I believe last night it was actually a Category 3 for a short time. But I think we lost another 5 miles an hour somewhere along the way. But, upper 2, low 3, it's all pretty close. So what are winds?
Splitting hairs.
Splitting hairs, exactly. So at 11:30 a.m. or as of 11 a.m.'s update, I think we're at 110 miles per hour? 110, yep. Okay. Not far away from, let's see, it's centered exactly. Where is it centered? Now, again, folks, remember, when you're listening to this program, this is a pre-recorded thing, so this will change depending on the time. But looks not far from Charleston, South Carolina at this point. At 11 o'clock.
But the center of circulation is still offshore.
Now, the track does take Dorian up offshore, again, like, what is that, about 50, 75 miles or so?
You're definitely within 100 miles.
Within 100 miles offshore. About 100 miles offshore of Wilmington, Jacksonville, North Carolina, just to point that out, not Jacksonville, Florida, Jacksonville, North Carolina. Then the actual track, the National Hurricane Center track, takes it right over the outer banks of North Carolina on or about 8 a.m. Friday. So with
about 24 hours from now.
About 24 hours from now, with an estimated wind gusts of maximum winds maximum winds of 100, estimated maximum wind gusts of 120. So that we're still within that Category 2 range storm. What kind of damage can a Category 2 do over the Outer Banks? Would you be concerned about if you were in that area?
I'd be mostly concerned with the storm surge and with the heavy rains and the flooding. You're going to have a lot of the infrastructure take some damage from that, but the storm surge is going to be by far the more deadly aspect of the storm.
Fortunately, Dorian is now moving, unlike it was doing a couple of days ago. So that's good. So at least it's not going to sit over any area for a particular amount of time. Everybody's big question the past couple of days is, will Dorian affect our area? Dorian likely will not affect our area, although we will see some influence, mainly in the form of clouds. I think we're going to see a lot of high to mid-level clouds on Friday. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. We have some of the clouds from the very outskirts of the cloud shield pretty much coming into our region today on Thursday. And they look to be lingering pretty much through Friday.
Yeah.
We may see a stray shower, perhaps, but I think that's going to be closer toward New Jersey.
Yeah, it looks like the closest any precipitation really gets to our area is southern Delaware, southern Jersey, far southern Jersey. Maybe, like I said, a stray outer band shower somewhere up our area, but the steadier precipitation there. And it looks like, even in that area, nothing too catastrophic. There could be some, high surf, beach erosion, obviously, but
winds will be out of the northeast.
Winds will be out of the northeast, and so it will be gusty.
Storm, yeah.
I've seen some forecasts for 40, 50 mile an hour winds, but fortunately they can probably tolerate that okay. And then Dorian takes off out to sea. I've heard some forecasters talking about if you're up in the New England, like far eastern Cape Cod, on Saturday. Looks like could be a little nasty up that way as it heads out to sea. So
it may clip the Cape there.
Yeah, a little clip the Cape and then out to sea. And then beyond that, looks like we have a pretty benign pattern. And that's kind of been, the opposite of what we've had the first half of this year. The second half of this year so far, since about, I don't know, what would you say, Dr. Davis, since about July, has been fairly quiet, compared to the first half of the year.
Yeah, I would probably say that. It's been fairly tranquil. But you've had... the storms,
those
heavy rains,
those random storms that'll come and dump,
and then the
6 inches of rain
that we had.
Right.
Was it late July?
Late July was the really intense heat. No heat anywhere to be seen for now, and I'm not complaining about that. Being the fall weather lover that I am, we are in meteorological fall now, as of the 1st of September, and it looks like temperatures actually hang in the 70s for the next 5, 6, 7 days. So.
Yeah, it looks a fairly consistent, persistent forecast for the next several days.
Yeah, not really a whole lot one way or the other. Looking at the Climate Prediction Center's outlooks, we're looking at 71 on Friday with those extra clouds and a breezy northeast wind. 75 on Saturday with the return of sun. 77 Sunday.
Pretty much looks like rubber
75, 76, 80, nights in the 50s. I mean, this is pretty much perfect weather, honestly.
Yeah.
So fantastic weekend coming up. Fantastic into early next week. Looks like temperatures do get back up above a little bit above normal. Normal this time of year, what is Dr. Davis, about 79?
79, 80, yeah.
So we'll actually be a little bit below normal for the next few days and maybe get a little bit above by mid next week. But other than that, not a whole lot to report. So Dorian pretty much has been the thing to talk about the past week or so. And other than that, not a whole lot going on.
And we are about 15 inches or so above normal for precip this year.
Yeah, so we're still not, even though it hasn't rained all that much lately, we're not worried about any rain for a while because we're pretty good in that department.
Yeah, we got enough rain pretty much to last us most of the year.
Yeah, I remember, what was that one statistic I shared back in, what was it, May or June, that if it, even at that point, if it hadn't rained another drop till like October
10th, I think
10th or something, we'd still be normal. You know,
Yes.
we still would not be any threat of a drought. So that's good. And as for more, we'll just mention any other hurricanes out there. I think
There's Gabrielle right now.
Yeah.
But she's a tropical storm and looks to be a fish storm. So pretty much
There
hanging
she
out
is.
in the
Yeah.
Atlantic.
Yeah.
We did have Ferdinand move into northern Mexico
Right.
just past couple days, but looks like that circulation is pretty much diminished.
Right. And the Pacific, not that we're really too concerned about the Pacific on this side of the...
Is Juliet still out there?
Juliet's still out there, down to 90 miles per hour. Yeah, a lot of those storms in the Pacific kind of don't get a whole lot of publicity because they go over a lot of area
Open
that's
water, yeah.
not really anything out there.
They form off the western coast of Mexico, and
Yeah.
the trade winds just push them
so-
pretty much away from land.
So Juliet's, floating around out there and looks to die off somewhere around next Tuesday, but not really affect anybody but a couple fish and maybe a random boat somewhere. But
And every now and then they do get a little close to Hawaii. or
occasionally,
impact them.
yes. So
Like Hurricane Lane a
Yep.
few years ago was the last one to really impact Hawaii.
yeah, the one I really remember in the 1990s. This is going way back. What was it? Hurricane Aniki? Does that
Aniki,
name-
yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I remember as a kid tracking, and I think that hit Hawaii pretty hard.
Yes. Hawaii doesn't usually see a lot of hurricanes because of the Hawaiian high that typically is camped out in that area.
Right.
So it gives them a somewhat of protection.
Okay,
But every now and then they do get a close call or one that makes landfall.
correct. So we're at about 15 minutes, Dr. Davis. We're going to wrap it up soon. We kind of covered our topic and our weather all in one lump there. So I'm just going to end these final minute or so with just saying that We're going to try to get your class involved in KUR this year. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, my students in weather analysis will be giving the forecasts this semester.
Okay.
And I hope that they can join us on these shows and chime in with the weather or talk about climate with us.
Cool. Well, we definitely look forward to that. And just also mentioning some holidays coming up climate-wise. September 18th is World Water Monitoring Day. Zero Emissions Day happens on September 21st, as is National Cleanup Day, also September 21st. And Car Free Day. I guess that's when you're supposed to leave the car at home and bike or walk into work. Might be a little difficult for you and I since we're not that close. But I guess it could be done. That's on September 22nd. We'll talk a little bit more about those days maybe at our next podcast, which is coming up hopefully next week.
Then September 20th is the Youth Climate Strike.
Right.
Orchestrated by Greta Thunberg, who came over from Sweden on the boat.
Right. Cool. Well, we'll look forward to that as well, too. All right. All right, Dr. Davis, thank you so much for being a part of the show today, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good.